Okay. Well, let's. It's about 4 after 10, so I don't want to keep folks any longer than we need to. But let's go ahead and get started. So welcome, folks, to the November New Mexico Drought Monitoring Work Group, and I appreciate you everybody who's on the line. And let's do a roll call for folks both in Albuquerque and also on the phone. And by the way, this is Dave Dubois in Las Cruces.
This is Raymond Abate of Via Reclamation.
Les Owen, Department of Agriculture.
Chris Haynes, Natural Resources Conservation Service.
Ridge State Forestry.
This is Dave Summerall, Western Regional Climate Center.
Okay, this is Brian Geyer at the National Weather Service with Chuck Jones, Sean Bennett, and John Fleck from the Albuquerque Journal.
Okay, anybody else?
Curtis McFadden, Albuquerque District.
Hey, Curtis.
Hello, how are you guys doing?
I'm doing well. It's a little chilly morning.
Yeah, I drove in and it was 18 degrees.
Ooh, nice. If you're a polar bear.
Yes. Luckily I had sweaters and I was in the car.
Yeah. All right, so it looks like Chuck's got a Mesa West map of central New Mexico looking for, is that current temps?
Those are the low temperatures from this morning. I wanted to highlight how cold it actually got. We had 10 degrees down there at the Montano Raz next to the Rio Grande. And areas across the northern part of the state, even colder. Santa Fe was 10. And I believe we had minus 11 at Angel Fire, 3 degrees in Taos, negative 6 up there by Cerro. Very chilly morning.
And John Longworth from the State Engineer's Office just joined us.
Morning, folks. Good morning. Okay, so I guess we can get started here.
Yeah.
Our presentation.
Minimize it.
Let's move forward. All right, there we go. So here we've got the precipitation summary for the first basically the first 3 weeks of November, and quite a difference, especially from 6 weeks ago. But generally, the western half of the state receiving just about not a whole lot of precipitation, and the main focus for snowfall has been across the northern mountains. You can see some of these blue areas here highlighting where we have seen some better snowpack finally. A little bit of precip across the central highlands, and then a strip of drier conditions across the northeast and the east central plains, and then still a little bit of precipitation impacting the far southeast part of New Mexico. In terms of the percent of average, essentially the west, 0% of average, and down towards the Gila region and the Northwest Plateau. And again, areas for the northern mountains, the eastern plains, generally, near to above average for the first few weeks of November, especially as you get down towards the far southeast. We've got some areas about 300% of normal. So generally dry in the west and parts of the east, and then we've received some decent precipitation over the higher terrain in the far southeast. Here's a look at the snow depth as of November 24th, and we can attest to some of those numbers that we've seen just recently across the northern high terrain. This last event brought anywhere from 6 to 12 inches for many areas of the lower San Juan and the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. And then a little bit of snowfall reaching out from Las Vegas down towards the I-40 corridor towards Tucumcari, and then up in the far northeast part of the state. The precipitation for the month of October, here's the summary for the statewide average. We saw 64/100ths of an inch, which is about a half an inch below normal. And this is a big difference from what we saw in September. So the focus for a lot of that rainfall with tropical remnants was across the southeast in September, and now into October, we basically didn't see any precipitation for some areas, especially down towards the Permian Basin. And again, the northern high terrain did okay in October, but you really needed to be up in the mountains to see much precipitation. And the Gila region did okay as well. But generally quite dry for October. Here's another view of that same chart for the statewide average. You can see here on the far right, below normal for the month of October, and that ranks the 39th driest out of all the Octobers on record. Here's the October 2014 precipitation by climate division, and we want to highlight a couple of these areas. Climate division 1 was about 40% of normal, and climate division 3, 30%, 5, 35%, and 7, 39%. So very dry for October in several of the climate divisions across the area. Climate division 4 seeing the best precipitation for the month, but still quite a bit below normal.
Oh,
Okay, climate division 4 is this one here highlighted in blue. So the far northwest, the northeast, and then the southeast quite dry, as well as the Albuquerque area. So,
yeah, it goes 1, 2, 3 across the top, 4, 5, 6, 7,
and then 8.
There's the desert.
So quite a difference from September, basically flip-flop essentially. Here's a look at the calendar year precipitation, January through October, and 94% of normal for the state, and that's quite good. However, that really is leaning on some significant precipitation that we saw across the southeast part of the state. So again, the southeast quite wet, the northwest quite dry. And same view of that data going back before 1900, that is the 49th driest on record. So, even though we're at 94% of normal, it's still fairly dry. And the overall trend you can see here since the 80s really has gone downhill for the month of for the calendar year. Here's the review of the water year for October through September. Still 93% of normal, and that really did hinge upon the bulk of the precipitation that occurred during the summer season and into September across the eastern part and the southeastern part of the state. And again, the northwest quite dry, some areas less than 50% of average. And again here for the water year, 49th driest, but still 93% of normal. And again, the bulk of those the good average numbers are generally because the southeast was so wet during that period.
In both the last two water years, the average has been that high only because of 2 months, July and especially the Septembers. Both 2013, 2014 Julys were wet and Septembers were very wet. Obviously 2013 was record-breaking. Otherwise, we'd be way down there like 2010 and 2011.
Right. So while the water year precipitation is near normal for the statewide average, if we start going back in time more towards the 24-month averages, we're still 48th driest, 94% of normal, which is quite good. But if we start going back longer in time, 36 months, we start showing that we're the 20th driest with almost 6 inches below normal for the 36-month period. So quite dry in the long term. So while the short-term drought conditions are improving, the long-term drought conditions are still quite significant across the state of New Mexico. I want to introduce something different in this month's drought monitor. This is some background information on the NASA Sport list. And NASA Sport is a organization that we've been working with here at the National Weather Service to bring some unique satellite products into our operations. And we've been collaborating with them since 2007, and so they have developed many applications down there in Huntsville, Alabama, and one of those applications is the list. And as many of you know, numerical weather prediction models are an integral part of what we do here at the National Weather Service. Well, there's a significant amount of information that goes into the land surface component of those models. Well, NASA Sport has developed the Land Information System, which essentially is integrating satellite data now into those models that generate information about what the surface features are that go into the models. In 2011, they started incorporating a 1 kilometer resolution satellite-derived composite that looks at the vegetation and how healthy it is. Those fields are updated daily. They go and they update that land surface model to provide more updated information about what can go into these models to create soil moisture forecasts. What they were using before was a monthly climatology, so this is much better in that it picks up photosynthetically active vegetation on a daily basis. So if we get a good rainfall event and a few weeks later we start seeing some green up, that green up information is going into calculating the soil moisture variables. And several other offices in the National Weather Service have been using this list as input for the U.S. Drought Monitor for quite some time now. So here, this image is the 0 to 10 centimeter relative soil moisture across the United States. And it's essentially the percent available water in that first 10 centimeters of the soil. So here across the northwest part of New Mexico, you can see basically 10 to 15% moisture in that first 10 centimeters, so extremely dry across the Four Corners region. And then out here in Southern California, Nevada, you can see really significant drought conditions, as many of us know already, going on across that area. For the southeast part of the United States, quite wet. So this is the November 24th updated soil moisture. So they've had some recent rains across the southeast, and that is indicated in this soil moisture imagery. Now, they also are able to develop 1 month differences in this relative soil moisture. So compared to a month ago across New Mexico, a lot of the southern areas of the state are much drier in terms of the first 10 centimeters of the soil. And you can see some of the areas across the north are a little bit wetter, and we did see that with the snowpack and some better precipitation across the northern high terrain. So we're going to look at this information more often now and try to see if there's some ways that we can incorporate that into providing a better input into the drought monitor. So where are we now? The New Mexico drought status as of November 18th still showing about 63% of the state still in moderate drought or worse, with 28% still in that severe or extreme. Much of the southeast, again, mostly due to precipitation during the summer months and into September, out of the drought. If we do a comparison with the 3 months ago, see the majority of the state has improved, but there are some areas that have actually gone back into moderate drought, that including the Rio Grande Valley and some portions of the high plains here. But overall, much improved compared to 3 months ago. Let's take a look at the extended weather climate outlook. Folks have been watching very closely what's going on in the equatorial Pacific, and here we've got the sea surface temperature loop with the actual temperatures on the top and then the anomalies on the bottom. And if you take a look right here along the equatorial Pacific, you can see definitely warming is occurring across this entire area. We have noted before there are several different types of El Nino events, and this one is not necessarily your traditional flavor of El Nino. So it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out. But one thing to note, we did have a large area of well above normal sea surface temperatures across the northern Pacific, and that is now cooling. So what we would traditionally see as like a positive phase of the PDO is starting to taper off across that area. And then there's this area of warming that's still persistent from Hawaii towards the west coast of the United States, but that is also cooling and moving farther to the south, which we would expect as we go into the winter months. So all eyes are on this Nino 3.4 region, where we do see, most of the indices showing that there is still increasing sea surface temperature anomalies in that area. Now, the latest CPC and International Research Institute probabilistic forecast did bring the chances of El Nino down. I believe we had 67% chance on the previous outlook, and that's now down to a 58% chance of an El Nino condition through the winter and the spring. So the chart on the top here illustrating the red bars for the 3-month periods, the probability of El Nino. So you can see that is the dominant mode here through the early spring months, and then the green is the neutral condition, and we do see that the probability is tapering off through the winter months with the El Nino being favored. And then the blue here are the La Nina probabilities, and this is good. I mean, while the probabilities did come down for the El Nino condition to develop, we don't see those La Nina conditions that really can bring some significant drought to our area. So things are definitely looking up. We're just continuing to look and see in that area whether or not we will actually have an El Nino episode through the spring season. The chart on the lower right is the plume-based probabilistic forecast, and this doesn't have any human forecaster element to it, and the probabilities there for El Nino are much higher than the human forecast. We can look at this in a different way by showing that plume diagram, and some folks may be more used to seeing this here, which does generally show most of them got model guidance through the winter season, indicating that we're going to get up there above the 0.5 threshold for weak La Nina conditions, or El Nino conditions, sorry.
A quick question on that one. I mean, we're talking about conditions, not actually like a El Nino, La Nina, right? In other words, the anomaly is above positive 0.5, and you got to have, 5 consecutive 3-month averages in order to have it considered. So we're just talking about it's going above, like right now it's like 0.9 or whatever. That's what we're talking about here. It's conditions, not necessarily forecasting an El Nino
episode. Right. An episode would require the 5 consecutive months of how's the best way to describe it?
5 consecutive periods of 3-month temperatures at or above 0.5.
Right. Anomalies, yeah.
Persistent.
They all have to be above
and
0.5.
I'm sorry, and so we're just talking about condition, not an episode.
Right. So then the upper left, this is just essentially telling us what the probability of developing that condition is.
Right.
And with these 3-month periods here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're still looking at the probabilities above 50% for those 5 periods. So that relates to the forecast plume saying, that we're going to get up into that weak El Nino, but it's not guaranteed by any means.
Okay, just to follow on that, I mean, if you look at the consensus line, and that's mid-November, right? It starts at about 0.5 for 3 consecutive months, and it looks like it might drop off.
Right. So we could see something where we have 4 consecutive months of that, and then it drops off, and then that wouldn't be considered an episode.
Right. So it's not.
I would elaborate a little more on the right-hand chart. I think that tells more of the story in one chart than any of them.
Mm-hmm.
All the different wiggly lines are the different models listed on the right, and then there's statistical models. which you've looked at the charts before, the consensus where it's kind of that dusty rose or whatever purplish color, the one that's going that you just mentioned that basically is just a little above 0.5 and goes below, that's 9 people at CPC.
So is that
Human beings is what that means. It's human beings interacting with the data, and that's what they think.
right?
Okay? So their expertise draws into the equation here in that line. The actual models, all the ones with the squares, that's the yellow line, and then the average of that. And then the statistical grouping is hard to see, but a light green line, that's the average of those different kinds of models.
Yeah.
The human one is actually pretty pessimistic, the way I see it, as far as getting into a robust El Nino.
And their skill has been shown to be better than the dynamical models. Isn't that?
And then that also brings up a point. You watch these things happen, and the problem with the skill, let's call it, of the model is it'll be going along on this, and then all of a sudden, Mother Nature decides to take a turn. The model's never predicted it. So this is, to me, this is a human being saying, yeah, I can't really bite off on this thing, really getting full-blown going. So we have other factors in play, which were the PDO and so on that help. But it's not a total negative thing. It's just I wanted to express that CPC Con is 9 people, okay? It's not a computer. It's a human being looking at data and all these models and all that stuff, you know, stirring the pot and saying, I think it's this. And then all 9 of them have been doing this for a good while, saying that's what we think.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because it looks like they track pretty well up through the May, June, July with the statistical numbers.
Yeah, it's closer to the statistical line than it is to the, right.
They have some confidence in that
Right,
one. I know
right.
that's gone back and forth
Right.
over the years.
And those are the different, let's call it methodologies for extracting what does all this mean, the data. So we throw it in statistical models as well as dynamical models, and then try to read the T's, leaves that come out of that. And that's what they're doing there. So.
All right, those are excellent points. And you may also notice this line here going way up. That's the NCEP CFS version 2, and that has not been performing very well. There's been some email exchanges about that, whether or not they're going to be doing some investigation into seeing why it's been producing those kinds of forecasts is still in question. But definitely a big outlier here, showing a moderate to strong El Nino as we go out into the summer months, which is totally bizarre. So, and you know, another good point here is that the development of the warmer than normal sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific is still going to drive some response to the atmospheric circulation.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking forward to as we go into the winter and the spring seasons. And the Climate Prediction Center for December is indicating that atmospheric response will begin to change across our area. So the probabilities are in favor for us to see some above normal precipitation for the month of December. Now, it's been quite dry so far for the month of November, so we're going to have to make up some ground here and start really becoming more active into December. And if you look at the GFS forecast out beyond about a week, it does look like there is a potential for that pattern to change. So the models are starting to pick up on a little bit more subtropical moisture starting to shift into our area as we go into December. The temperature outlook for December, cooler than normal across much of West Texas, the high plains and parts of eastern New Mexico. And the 3-month outlook for December through February still showing the odds really in our favor for above normal precipitation during the winter season.
Yeah. So this distills in all the different information we were just looking at El Nino forecast previously. There's other factors in play here too. You mentioned PDO and the Arctic oscillation and the this and the that. So again, these are human interactions with data that bring this about. So they're even though they're consensus in the long term, I would read from that it's going to end next spring, but between now and then we're going to get an above average shot at precip and even cooler, more outbreaks into the center of the country, which answers the polar vortex question that people keep asking.
And as many of you know, that in New Mexico, we can go a couple weeks without having much precipitation. It only takes a few events to just really change what the numbers look like by the end of those 3-month periods. So we could get a real humdinger come across, or 2 or 3 of them, while we're dry in between.
Yeah.
But overall, by the end of those 3-month periods, we'd be looking at having received above normal precipitation.
And that's a term of art, humdinger, right?
Yeah, there you go. A doozy. And the temperature outlook, again, similar to the December outlook, but more probabilities favoring cooler than normal conditions across the southern U.S., which follows the idea of, more cloud cover with a more active storm track across these areas, generally resulting in cooler than normal temperatures.
Go back on that. Look at Alaska, though. So what this tells me is big southerly flow over Alaska during this period in general, and a northerly flow down into the plains, and mostly washing out across the eastern part of, from the Rockies to the east.
You're talking jet stream.
Yes, the big amplitude pattern jet stream. So it doesn't help much in the California area, but the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As we move into the spring months, we're looking more at equal chances. There's not anything that we can really hang our hat on. It gets out there towards, 5th, 6th month periods. It gets a little bit harder to indicate what kind of precipitation we'll be looking at. And again, cooler across a good part of the southern United States. Let's take a look at the El Nino winters and springs percent of normal. These 2 charts here on the left, we've got December, January, and February, and on the right, March, April, and May. And these are the average precipitation numbers by climate division. If we group all of the El Nino winters and springs together going back to the early 1900s. So again, what we're seeing in the CPC outlooks, we also see when we go back and look at the analogs for the El Nino years for New Mexico. So the odds are, in our favor for above normal precipitation, particularly across the central and southern parts of the state. But still, even across the north, having 100 to 120% of normal is quite good, especially compared to the last 4 years where we haven't had much precipitation. So even an average year is going to seem significant, I think, in terms of snowpack, especially across that part of the state. And as we go into the spring months, it gets even better. And one thing we do have to keep in mind, though, is the spring can tend to be dry here anyways. So even though these numbers are better, it doesn't necessarily mean that the precipitation amounts will be higher. It's just that it would be wetter than it normally is when it's dry. But still, this is good news. Now, the drought outlook issued on November 20th, indicating really, this area across the southern United States showing some improvement or to remain the same, and drought conditions deteriorating as we move to the north across the western United States, and then maybe even the central plains. So this brings us almost to the end here. Here's last week's map, and then we'll want to talk about some of the suggested changes for this week. And I think we've got actually the SNOTEL water equivalent as well here. showing that the northern part of the state's doing pretty good for late November, with south really not seeing anything, which is the opposite of what we would want to see so far. But it's still pretty early.
Dave, do we want to get into a discussion about any changes? Is there a author on the line, or?
You know, I'm looking at the draft 3 that came out, and it's basically I don't see any changes eyeballing it. The main concern areas are the west and northwest, I think, but those are already covered with our D2 areas, starting in northern Grand, going all the way up to the far San Juan. I think I don't want to really touch that one. I think it's pretty good, and I guess the question is, is that D3 on the corner there in the Chusca Mountains, is it still warrant a D3 there? And I haven't crunched the numbers yet, but I think it does. What do you guys think?
We think it does.
Yeah.
We were even wondering if we may have to expand a little bit up in there.
Yeah.
Short term, it's been pretty bad the last 30 plus days, but when we got back to looking at 60 and 90 days, it was pretty close to normal out there. So, but we can certainly don't want to remove it. We can live with probably it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe even some of this D0 area within Cibola, maybe going into D1, parts of this area.
A little bit of deterioration into 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do we have any? What's our measurement? I mean, we got pretty good radar coverage there, but I don't know. We've got one El Moro down there, but what else is out there in terms of observations?
Gallup Grants.
Okay, Grants. Yeah. Okay, Grants. Okay.
Did you watch Grant?
No.
I got a question. We saw on the short-term precept there was that dual line, sort of Colfax County, southern Colfax County through Tobacco or something like that, and then we had the vegetative index as well.
Are you talking about this one here?
Yeah, that, and then I was wondering if that's short-term, longer-term, maybe it's a little bit better out there. I was just curious if there's any thought, what you guys thought about, where's that vegetative one? Yeah, that one there. Is there any changes from that perspective? I'm thinking about eastern New Mexico.
Oh, eastern.
That area.
This area here is drier.
Right. And that's a vegetative one, so that's your 10.
And then you had this area here that was drier.
Maybe it's just D1, but there's some areas there that are just that.
You mean in here?
Yeah.
It could be like a little abnormally dry, maybe.
Well, I'm thinking either that or just is that for Curry County, would that go to D1?
Okay.
I
I passed that by Chuck earlier about parts of the east.
Yeah, I didn't have time to crunch the numbers out there.
On the Texas side, on Curry is they're at a 0, D0 on that side.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't like Texas, so.
Well, yeah, I noticed Gammon didn't do any.
Because of the dry land conditions. It sounded like the dry land weeds able to come up a little bit, but then they were talking, if I wasn't able to see the National Agricultural Statistics Service release yesterday, didn't have a chance to read it to see what they were reporting, if anything. But I know the week before, I think they said they had some good conditions for the dry land stuff, but sorry, I would look at that too. Just to see. I got next week too, The drought monitor short, long-term, non-storage, indicators they need. I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't have real strong feelings.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about the east too.
Yeah, it's been pretty dry, like in Clovis. I mean, over at least the last 2 months. I mean, through almost all of October. They've been just drying out.
Yeah, I mean, the last time the east really saw any significant precipitation was back in September.
Exactly. And I was out there.
The conditions prior to the summer season were so dry that you would think that even as you go down to lower, below 10 centimeters, you see really no change at all. Like Dee was showing on the last meeting. So to continue to go back into drought or drier conditions, I think it'd be pretty quick to get back into some deteriorating conditions.
Yeah, no, I go along with that because there was that frontal haboob that went through the northeast part of the state coming in, and that pretty much, and I saw some photos of that. So at least the very short, the soil moisture is very, very dry. And that whole area going all the way, I think going all the way up through Union.
Yeah.
So maybe we want to keep that. Maybe that our focus area to keep track of that all the way the far northeast Union through Roosevelt, because that's looking at that. That's the one that is that the actual. Yeah. Okay. So it ranges down to the 20s, 30s, except for a pocket around Guadalupe, San Miguel. Somewhere.
Yeah, and that's where we saw that snow.
Okay.
So there's definitely pockets of very dry across that area.
Yeah, it's hard. When I was out there, it's hard to tell what's going because I don't know the timing of the grasses. Maybe that's a less question.
Well, I just would reiterate, Curry County. I mean, that's the one county that we have that's a real dryland agriculture area. That's insignificant, and I just wonder, keeping it in a D0, is that just that little sliver there? Is that appropriate or not? And you all the experts, so.
Well, let's recommend that we, get them in the abnormally dry at least, close that area up, fill in all of Curry County with that.
Well, I think it is abnormal.
Yeah, the far east side is 0, and then the rest, the other 3/4 of it is in 1, the west side.
So I'm kind of talking about that little sliver, the east side of there. That one.
Oh, this here,
yeah.
a D1, yeah.
That's
Oh, okay.
That's the kind of area I'm thinking about. Because that's where the path is.
Yeah. I could see this as a D0, all in here, and then maybe D1 down into here. And even this area up here could deteriorate some.
Well, that's where you have the pretty dark reds of the 0 to 10, right?
Yeah.
And what differentiates the D1 from the D2 up there? Is it just a long-term precip? So that's ones, I don't know, when they blew through, but maybe that's some considered.
Well, I think isn't that a rangeland forage cattle area? Are you still on, Les? I don't know. Did Les drop off? Yeah, well, I'll ask him later if he's not on the call.
When I get back, I'll look at the NAS's report, and I can forward that on to you.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay.
Hi, this is Dave Summerall here. Hey, I was just had a question on the those NASA products that you were just showing, and then I was looking at the NASA Grace products, and they're kind of telling a different story than the ones you're showing. If you looked at the surface soil moisture percentiles for the latest NASA Grace?
No, I have not. I am aware of the Grace products.
You can get to them if you searched NASA Grace, and then I think you can get under USDM. They're about a week behind. It's November 17th product, but it's showing pretty moist in that southeast corner. And I know there's not a lot of observational data, but I just pulled a couple. Well, I pulled one scan site. It's kind of due east of Roswell, but a little bit. I don't know. It's not too far from the border. Kind of probably 60, 70 miles east of Roswell. And just looking at the water year soil moisture, and it looks like it's kind of held pretty steady. It's really hasn't really dropped off, and there was actually a little bit of a spike in the surface. It's the 2-inch measurement over the past month. Are you guys familiar with where to find that scan data? I don't know if you've looked at some of that too. Oh, okay. So going to help you find the Grace stuff. Let me see. Actually, go to the. Sorry about this. It's kind of hard to find. If you search NASA Grace and maybe National Drought Mitigation Center, so NDMC. There you go. I think you might find it there. There you go. It's hard, I'm not saying this is right. These are right. It's sometimes I take these with a grain of salt. Some of these products. Okay. And I was just trying to confirm what I saw there, and my next step here is I just took a look at a couple of the scan sites. And I don't know if you guys wanted to take a look at those,
right,
as well.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's telling a totally different story.
Well, I mean, across parts of that area, it's not quite that different, but for
yeah, in that southeast corner, though.
Yeah.
I mean, one's a percentile of normal, and the other's a percentage of.
One's change, isn't it? Do you have the month before? The one you're looking at is change over the last 30 days, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Do you know what it looked like the month before?
Yeah. We can find out.
Is there something that's not changed and that's put into a percentile or something like that?
Yeah, I would need to look into that, yeah.
The worst thing is the absolute moisture, and the greatest thing is percentile normal. The average, it's very different.
So, a month ago, that's volumetric, sorry.
I'd just be curious what the change is. If it's gone from something that was really moist, something that's, somewhere kind of normal.
Yeah, I think that might be. I would suspect that. So here was a month ago, and definitely, when we looked at that difference field, you could see how it was much drier in this whole area. Well, it definitely was wetter. The change from the previous month there still drier.
Yeah.
But it's going to be that way because September was so wet.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I'll look more into that. Whoops.
Do you want to pull one of the, I mean, I know these are only point observations, but if you could pull that new interactive map tool that NRCS has to look at their sites. I don't know if you guys have seen that. And you could pull, there's a couple scan sites that might be worth taking a look at.
The one that's giving you an absolute measure.
Okay. Okay. So here was the September loss.
Yeah.
So what would I search for that?
Let me see how I got there.
Northeast corner of the state. I don't care
You could just
Google scan data.
Yeah.
I think interactive map. NRCS map, you might try that one. The second one, entry possibly. I think this is it because it took long for mine to load up as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's products that they're discontinuing and.
Yeah, this is their new interface that they have.
Literally couldn't get stuff up yesterday when I was trying to debug.
Yeah, so if you zoom in, there you go. And I looked at, that site doesn't work. That one you can click on. Crossroads not functioning. Willow Wells, and I clicked on the water year chart. So click on it. It's there. You go. One down. Actually.
Yeah, Deirdre actually contacted them about that Crossroads site, and it's likely that the data is still being collected. So it just needs to somehow get out onto the web page. It's still working. It's just not getting out.
Yeah.
Due to whatever reason. So. Okay. So.
No, you clicked on the wrong one. If you click on the one right below it, if you go back one, water, soil moisture. I'm just kind of looking at the trend here of how quickly, it doesn't look like it's drying out very much. And that's obviously since October 1st. That only, it looks like, it goes to the 20th, yeah, of, oh, that's 10/20.
Oh yeah, it's about a month old. So it pretty much ended the month about the way it started.
Yeah, and then you can take a look. I also looked at Adams Ranch, which is more kind of central part of the state.
Oh, nice. It's 20 inches. That's not good.
That one looked actually moister than the other ones.
Yeah, I would expect that.
But that would tend to agree a little bit more with the Grace map, just on the surface.
That's right, too, November 26th to today.
And
what's the value? Is that percent?
11%.
Percent of
Soil moisture.
What level? 20 centimeters?
Well, here it's got 2 inches.
No, that's...
Yeah, it's a profile.
That's where it's stated,
20 inches.
20 inches below surface. Yeah.
So that's 10% of the total potential soil moisture?
Right, so like if you squeezed out all the moisture in the soil, 11% of it would be water. Or, yeah, something like that.
Well, I mean,
anyways, I just thought I'd throw that out to you guys to take a look at. I don't know if
Yeah, I
you
really
changed
appreciate
anything.
that.
Well, I think it's really interesting too. I just note though that if we look at 10-1-14, red's lower, black's lower, and blue's lower. So, I mean, the overall trend is less than, we're seeing sort of that last September event wash through, and then we got a couple of, not wash through, but, kind of move through, and then we see those couple events, one.
Yeah, it looks like you've had just a gradual drying and then a couple storms that came in, added some moisture.
There was a good storm in 16, 17.
Mm-hmm. But overall, compared to the beginning of October, we're actually drier.
Mm-hmm.
So taking a look at the drought monitor for early October, I wonder what that was looking like.
That's some cool stuff.
Yeah, this is excellent. I really appreciate sharing this. This is a good interactive meeting.
Oh, now you got your work cut out for you the rest of the day.
Right. So, do we want to hand it back to Dave?
Yeah, you want
Move
to, we
forward.
got to keep on moving then?
Move forward.
Yeah, I think let's keep a look on this. Let's do a little more investigation. I was just looking at the current calendar year. If you go into that same report, you can hit the time. But let's look at that offline, and then continue to look at this. And maybe if we see something, let's send it through email and maybe communicate it to the drought author. I'm not sure who's the author this week. And then maybe we can, if we want to adjust things, we can just send out an email. How's that sound?
Good.
Hey, Dave, and I'll also send you, and you could forward it. I don't know if you guys look at these at all, but I've got a link to the National Fuel Moisture Database, and it's something that's used by the BLM and Forest Service.
Great.
And look at fuel moisture. So there's a couple sites in, well, actually there's a number of them in New Mexico, but I'll forward that to you guys as well.
Great. Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, Ray Abeda.
Sure can. Okay, I'll start on the Rio Grande Basin, the storages. Petroleum reservoirs, 11,424. Heron, 70,546. El Vado, as low as 20,219. Attacue, 127,402. Cochiti, 46,211. Let's see, Elephant Butte, 205,333 acre feet. Caballo, 31,567. And then on the Pecos, we have Santa Rosa at 69,920. Sumner, 38,511. Brantley, 79,172. And Avalon, 2,036. And so now irrigation has been off for 2-3 weeks now, and we're flowing really well on the Rio Grande with the native that's coming in from Colorado and from the Sangres, so we're in good shape there. And like we heard, that September event really put a lot of nice water in the reservoirs and the Pecos. We got about 30,000 we're holding in Brantley. Going to start releasing it soon to Red Bluff, Texas. So they had, like we said in the last report, they had some problems, so we had to hold the water for a little while. But that's about 30,000 extra, so yeah, that was quite an event in September. We're releasing about 15 CFS for the fish out of Brantley, and we have the Avalon pumps on right now. And those will be running out here in the 1st of December. And so we'll be strictly releasing from the reservoir then for the fish. But otherwise, we're doing good. Bank storage, ground storage seems to be good. We're not having to release as much as we were the past few years, so that helps. So otherwise, we're in pretty good condition, and like we said, we're going to really need a lot on the Rio Grande to get us going as far as this precip and snowpack. So hopefully that'll pan out. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Raymond.
Thank you.
Okay, I didn't hear if Wayne was on from give us any snowtail numbers. He's probably
well, actually.
Go ahead.
Sorry, this is Chris Haynes, and I've replaced Wayne as the snow surveyor out at the New Mexico State office. So
okay.
I'm here. And I'll try and stumble my way through this. I sent my slides out at the last minute, so.
Did you get it, Chuck?
You can go ahead and open up the slide there.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Does Wayne normally go through this entire presentation here?
Not the whole thing. Mainly the snow. Maybe a SWE maps and any other thing that stands out. I think.
Okay, because I have the the snow precipitation update for the basin data is what I've got up over here, and they're.
So is this not the correct file here?
Yeah, here. I think what might be more useful and a better. Yeah, open up right there. That's
okay.
That's probably just a better picture of what's going on as far as snowpack and precipitation here in New Mexico. You can see the Chama River Basin is at about 82% of the average right now, with the snow water equivalent at 91 for the basin index. And you go a little bit further down, kind of where I'm at, the upper Rio Grande, you're still looking at about 61% of the average. So it's still kind of dry. Go further north up to Sangre de Cristos, and they're sitting at 92% right now with the snow water equivalent of 99. So they're starting to get some snow up north. It's not a whole lot, but it's starting to fall. And then further down, the Jemez is at 75% and 83. Further south, San Francisco, it's further south you go. Obviously, right now it's going to be drier. So 48% of the average, and then the Gila River Basin's at 63, and Mimbres is at 90, with the Pecos River Basin at 73%. So, and San Juan's at 57% and 58. So. It's reflective of the slides that were shown earlier. Up further north, Animas, just a little bit further down there. There you go. 77% of the average, and then Cimarron at 92%. So it's very reflective of the slides that you were showing earlier, the discussion that was going on regarding that kind of drier region around the Clovis and southeast, and then it's obviously wetter as you go north of the center of the state towards the more mountainous areas. So I guess, are there any questions regarding any of the basin report data? I think it's still pretty early in the season. It's into December and January. I would expect it the precipitation to increase in the higher altitudes.
Any questions for Chris? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. If I didn't cover anything that Wayne normally covers, please let me know. I found out about this about 2 days ago.
Oh. Well, thanks. I appreciate it, Chris, for taking over.
No problem. You can just, I guess, add me onto the list, and I'll attend in the future as well.
Will do.
Great. Thank you very much.
So Wayne's still working with you guys, right? Or is he kind of doing?
He he's out at the Portales office.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so he might actually have more insight into the Adams Ranch and those scan sites you were looking at down by Clovis.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, he's still with the NRCS. He just moved over to the east side of the state.
Oh, great. Well, I'll have to stop by his office. I have to go do some work over there. Say hi to him.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Any questions for Chris before we move on? All right. And I don't...
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. Did we get anything from Anne Marie with the USGS on StreamFlow?
We did, but she said she couldn't make the call.
Okay.
So we can just throw the data up here, look at it real quick. I mean, generally, it looked like just about all areas were pretty much below where they should be. There are a couple spots that are doing a little bit better, but in general, most places below normal.
Okay.
So, I think some of these were maybe due to some releases, perhaps, like that Delaware River near Red Bluff. I'm not entirely sure.
Delaware, unless it's backing up, but Delaware River drain from the Guadalupe, it's like south of the Guadalupe.
Okay.
Well, that's pretty high. I mean, it's 24. Or no, it's at 35, and that's usually like 9, something like that.
Right. And the Animas River at Farmington, we've had some snow events up in the San Juans, and then we've had some warming periods, so that could be some snow melt, initial snow melt just from some snowfall. That was all we received from Anne-Marie.
Okay. I mean, overall, it didn't look too bad. I mean, looking at like the Gila, 140, and then even with the light snow from the looking at the maps in the tables, it was like 63% from Chris's tables. We have 85% at Mogollon, 140 on Gila. So that's a little surprising, maybe, with those. But yeah, okay. Any other thing?
Yeah, I felt anyway.
Alrighty.
For a second, just real quick, Black River above Malaga is 51%, and that's the drainage right essentially above Red Bluff. And at Red Bluff, you're at 145, 35 CFS. I'd ask Anne Marie about that. I wonder if something's stuck down there.
Okay.
But Black River's...
Where is that?
Black River?
Yeah.
Just above the Delaware River.
Okay.
No, it's do you know where Malaga is?
I've heard of it. I'm not sure where that is. Where is that?
So if you're taking 285 south,
Yeah.
and once you get out of Carlsbad, I think it's I forget towards the end of CID, you kind of go over a little creek, and that's the Black River, and
Okay.
it's fed by a spring called Blue Spring, which is kind of like off channel. That's basically the 6.1 is likely coming from that spring. Remember, they're not diverting. I don't think. They could be diverting, CID could be diverting because there's a diversion structure just upstream of that gauge. I'm still surprised, but even then, I'd be surprised if they were. I mean, given it's November, almost December, I don't know what they'd be irrigating. But the difference between those two, the averages, I guess, are, about double, but that's 5 times as low. Something happened down there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I see it on the map. To look into that. I'll have to go down there and visit these days. Okay, any other questions about stream flow?
Hey Dave, if you could
Yeah.
go down there to visit,
Yeah.
I recommend contacting the district office, state engineer's district office in Roswell,
Uh-huh.
and get in touch with a surface water master. He knows that area pretty well, and he could get you in to see the Blue Spring. And I think that he'd be able to give you a pretty good tour down there of kind
Awesome.
of how that system works.
Great. Yeah, I need to go down
You
there.
can tell him
Yeah.
Yeah, you could tell him I suggested you call him. He knows me pretty well.
Okay. Thanks, John. Okay, let's move on to the state engineer's report. So that would be John, I think. We can fire that up on the PowerPoint.
Yeah, it's basically, all we're going to do is say, check the Raymond's numbers. You've got Raymond's numbers. So what we used, and I've got the top bullets where we get the data from, that kind of thing, graphic view. But I think we have this bottom bullet a little bit, this is our public distribution product, and it's going to be on the Drought Task Force website. So this is sort of summarizing Ray's report a little bit. So we can probably go through it pretty quick. There aren't a whole lot of changes. Next slide, please. So the information we put on there, if you look at the lower left-hand corner, we have last year's storage at this time, current storage from NRCS. I think we pulled it maybe Monday or something, last week. Then the long-term 30-year average, and then we started putting on the previous month's storage to see if there's any changes, particularly important when we were seeing those really dramatic changes in the last couple of late summers. They're all thousands of acre feet, and let's kind of shoot through them. I think we can get through pretty quick. Navajo, a little bit better than last year this time. No big changes from last month, but still, a few 100,000 feet below average. So that's definitely something worth watching. 30,000 feet below average, not much change, about a little bit better than last year, so that's typical for you. Santa Rosa down quite a bit from where it was last year, moved a lot of water around, still well above average and not much change from last month. Sumner, we see a little bit of inflow there from last month, definitely a little bit higher than last year and well above average. Brantley, well above average. Wow. Quite a bit better than last year. And I think Ray was talking a little bit about they're moving some water out of there. And it's about the same as last year. I haven't gotten the details. Maybe you guys already know this, that apparently there's a provision in the Pecos River Compact that's never been called out before, which allows for storage in New Mexico to be held and accounted for and moved down to Texas, and this is one of those rare situations where it actually happened. And in anybody's memory, we can't recall ever invoking that. So I guess everybody's having a little kind of counting problem, like, well, what do we do, How does this work exactly? So it's kind of an interesting situation. It's, I think, a pleasant sort of result from those rains we had this late summer. There's kind of the long-term story in my mind. We're way off average. We're down from last year, and we, of course, haven't seen much change from last month. But in my mind, that starts getting into that's all imported water. So that means San Juan's been off a little bit, and we've been drawing off of that. So I just see that one as just something to continue to watch. Hopefully it's got a good snowpack, but it's got a ways to go yet. Get back to average. Elvado way off again. Not much difference from last month, and not much difference from last year this time. So we're right about, and this is native water storage. So it's we're kind of the same condition we were last year this time, and let's just see what happens. Hopefully we get Oh, and then the other, I guess, thing we should add here is there's no storage. We can't store native flow given the conditions down Elephant Butte as per the compact. So until we see major changes, about doubling down south, this will remain at that level. Abiqui's down a little bit from last year, just under 20,000 acre feet, and it's 40,000 acre feet off of average. Not much change, no surprise there. Last month, Elephant Butte hasn't changed a lick this year, last year, and is way off average. And so that needs to get up to a storage of in and around 400,000 acre feet. You have to account for credit water, San Juan Chama credit water, there's all sorts of stuff there, but we're way off. And until that crosses the 400,000 foot level, we can't store in El Vado. And that's the bottom on that one. And then last but not least is Caballo. Down a little bit from last year. That's probably due a little bit to some of the storms we had last year, but still, we're way off of average there. So Caballo's more of a little bit of a re-regulator. Not quite as big as Elephant Butte, obviously. Not quite. Order of magnitude smaller, but more flood control there and still water. So anyway, I added this on. Just a summary, and it gave me a better way to check Ray's numbers, and we matched up pretty well, so I was pleased about that. And so this is, going to go up on the website along with any other of the materials we get. And with that, we're done. I had a question. So I can't remember if we did it last year, but in previous years, we put some charts up just sort of depicting taking it from NRCS sites, showing the precip and snow water equivalent to support sort of the NRCS stuff and match that up. Is this group interested in seeing that again? It's somewhat automated for us, so we can just see the trend, hopefully building, or I'm happy not to do it as well. I think it was helpful in the past. We looked at just sort of some key snow tell sites just to sort of tell the story.
Seems like you want to do it, right?
Yeah, I think. Let's.
Right. Yeah, that's really what we use it for, is tracking snowpack. I'm sorry, Dave. What?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Even if you provide the I know like on the NRCS you can do the compare it to like last year. Looking at the SWE, over the course, compare to normal. I think those are also useful.
All right, we'll try to put something together. I'm not sure when we're going to meet again. Probably not.
I think
we meet again.
I think we'll meet in December. Did we decide on December? And we usually skip January. But
I think it was the other way around.
The other way around. Okay, so we'll skip December and go through January. Okay, that's right. Yeah, we I forgot about that. But
that'd be good, because then that gives us another sort of 6 weeks or so, 7 weeks to build that tremendous amount of snowpack that we anticipated.
Yeah.
This is Chris. If you need assistance in pulling the snow water equivalent or snowpack information from the SnowTel site, let me know.
Okay. Definitely.
Okay, any questions for the state engineer's report? Awesome, thanks. And John, thanks for doing the enhancements compared to last month, and also providing the table. That's useful. So I would keep putting that table at the end.
Okay. Sounds good. Glad it was helpful.
Yeah, great, thanks. Is Les? I think he dropped off on the call with the NMDA.
No, I'm back. I
back?
apologize.
Oh,
I had
no
to
problem.
step out for just a second.
Okay.
Y'all caught me. Actually, I don't have I didn't send a report out. They've kind of tailed off on doing the crop progress reports. There's not really anything in there. In fact, they're shutting them down until next April. But as far as ag impacts, there's really nothing new to report. I'd be happy to try and answer anybody's questions about anything, but I don't have anything formal.
So Les, is there any, because we were looking at the drought monitor discussion on the east side, far east, and even maybe out through northern Lee, northeast Chavez, all of DeBaca, Roosevelt, that whole chunk, the northeast. Do you have any observations, reports that you've seen for forage in the last say month to 2 months? Because we were looking at some soil moisture data. We're seeing some short term. There's some conflicting a little bit in the data sources, but some short term increases in soil moisture compared, and then it's a little bit of the long term drying out, and then some bumps at the end. But do you have any observations from that area?
I was over around between Roswell and Milne Sand 3 weeks ago, and there was an abundance of soil moisture. In fact, some of the areas that we were planning on going to, we couldn't because it's a good way to bury a pickup when it's that muddy. So and it was that particular storm covered a pretty good chunk of country over there. So I don't know if that adds any useful information, but I haven't been over. There was the forage conditions, of course. The warm season's over and everything. It's the nest when I was over there, but they grew a lot of grass over in that country this year. So the range conditions looked pretty good. But there was a pretty large scale precipitation event while I was over there that should have increased some soil moisture.
Hey, Les, this is Longworth. Have you heard anything coming out of the Clovis area or Curry County in terms of how the dryland farming is?
Yeah, I haven't heard much.
Haven't heard much?
I haven't heard a peep from over there, and I'm guessing that means it's at least decent. I don't know. I'll have to do some outreach for the next meeting and talk to some of the extension guys over there and see how their winter wheat's doing. But no, I haven't. To make a long story short, I haven't heard anything.
I heard that they, reading the NASS report, that they kind of started off pretty good, and of course they got the cold snap, so that stopped everything from growing, but It sounds like they're getting a little dry, but maybe not, obviously the extreme conditions they've had in the past. So I was just curious if you'd heard anything more.
Sure, it's been so long since there's been any moisture for the past 3 years that folks think it's good, even though when it's really not average, whatever that is, conditions. It's just better than it's been in the near past, so it seems pretty rosy.
Yeah, it's ironic.
Yeah, understandable though. Okay. Any other things on agriculture impacts? Okay. And I haven't heard from either Joylyn or Emelita in a while, but I'll shoot them an email. Is anything? I don't expect a lot of information, but anyway. Any other discussion? I think the next item was the drought monitor, but I think we've addressed that. I think in the summary is I think we need to start looking at that eastern part of the state a little more. It probably won't. I'm not sure if it'll make it into this week's, but at least maybe next week's. If anything comes up, go ahead and email it out. If you have any edits to the D0 to D1, or even expanding D0 into, especially that area, part of Chavez and Lee County. So, all right, everybody good? Any other things before we decide on next meeting? Okay. Well, I think go ahead. Go ahead.
Dave, we had an action item from our last meeting. I think we were discussing what we wanted to do with the Drought Task Force meeting.
Oh yeah, yeah.
How we wanted to go, whether or not that was going to occur or not, and when.
Right. Do we have a what was our last? Where did we leave off on that? Were we going to have something in January? I think I remember discussing with Molly something around the week of the 12th or the or the 5th.
That's the last thing I remember hearing, but Chuck and I had not heard anything. That's
Okay.
why we wanted to bring it to the table.
John, have you heard anything for the task force? Longworth?
Well, you know who the chair of the task force is, right, Dave? It's the state engineer, so...
But you haven't heard anything from
well,
him?
I mean, he got fired, so I don't know what they're thinking.
Is that what you call it?
Pretty much. I'll split it, you know. I mean, he quote-unquote resigned, so...
When was that?
Right now we're... Oh, you didn't know?
No.
Friday.
Oh.
He signed. We have a new state engineer. His name's Tom Blaine, and he starts the Monday after Thanksgiving.
Oh.
He's already moved in.
Okay. Well, now I know.
So I mean, it's a good question. We're a long way away from trying to figure out what's going on with the drought task force.
Okay.
So I think we should continue to meet. I mean, that'd be my recommendation, and certainly to make him aware that we meet. And Tom is on the drought task force as an alternate for Ryan Flynn, so he went to most of the meetings. What he wants to do with it, and the governor, I haven't heard a peep. But it's kind of new news.
Okay. Well, I think we'll play it by ear. We could ask about it, but I think at least for us, I agree we should keep meeting, because we're basically the only people looking at this right now, and we need the drought monitor continues to march on, so regardless of what happens, so that's part of this effort. Well, keep us informed of what's going on. Do we want to? How do we want to? Does he know a lot about what we do? What do we need to do in terms of briefing him? Guess that's a question for John.
A couple things. One, the drought monitoring work group has met more or less continuously since like the late 90s, irrespective of the drought task force. So I agree, Dave, the drought monitoring group needs to continue to meet, particularly given all the changes. I mean, we're not going to have given all the administrative changes, we're not going to have probably big meteorological changes in the next couple months, other than hopefully we get some snowpack. But so it's a good time to think about briefing him. Dave, I really don't know. I just, it's caught a lot of people off guard, and why don't you and I talk offline about how best to go forward?
Okay, that sounds fair. So at least for our working group, I think we chatted a little bit on a possible date in January. I think we proposed January 20th. CPC updates on the 15th, the Thursday, and then the 20th is the following Tuesday. And so what do folks think about that? That's the day after Martin Luther King Day.
Works for me.
Dave, that works really well for us here at
Okay.
the Weather Service.
Can we make it at 9 a.m.? Will that work for folks at 9 a.m. Mountain Time?
You talking permanent or just that day?
What? Say it again, Raymond.
Are you talking permanent or just?
No, just for that one day. I have a class that I teach at 11:45. on Tuesdays and Thursdays all semester next semester. And that's why reason why I'm. So that work? January 20th, 9 a.m.
Yep.
Okay. I think what we'll do is I may put together a recorded kind of a briefing, drought briefing for December, and just email it out, put it on YouTube, email it out. If anybody in the weather service, anybody else wants to email something, I'll include it in. That'll be in lieu of a actual drought call. At least it'll give us some numbers for or any updates on the El Nino. That sound fair for folks?
We're good with that.
Okay, and I'll put that together. So anything else needed? We're well over the 1 hour we usually do, but it's important to do this. One more tidbit of information. If everybody's interested, I emailed out the Climate Prediction Application Science Workshop in Las Cruces, March 24th through 26th. We're still accepting abstracts through December 1st, and we may be able to squeak one past that if you really want to submit. That should be a good conference. We got about 30 abstracts so far. So let me know. All right, folks. Go ahead.
Hey, also, this is Dave Simmerall, and I'm one of the Drought Monitor authors, if you guys don't know. We're going to be hosting the U.S. Drought Monitor Forum. You probably saw my email that went around. That'll be April 14th through 16th here at Desert Research Institute. So put that on your calendars as well if anybody's interested in coming. It's a nice event, and not as much, there's presentations, but there's a lot of roundtable discussions. So there's a lot of good discussion on how to improve communication between the authors and you guys. And you guys can share whatever you like in those discussions. But I'll be hitting up some people as well. If any of you are interested in giving talks at that, I'll be hitting up some people probably next month for that. So just mark your calendars if you're interested.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Anything else before we end the call?
No, I just wanted the weather forecast for the presentation would be going out real quick. I'd like to get that out to some folks in the house before the holidays.
You mean Chuck's?
Yeah, Chuck's.
Chuck's and Brian's? Okay. Yeah, I think you guys can probably email that out, right?
Yeah.
Great, thanks, guys.
Okay. Well, thanks, everyone. Have a great Thanksgiving. And we'll see you.
Have a good Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanksgiving.
Right.
See ya.
Bye.
Okay. Thank you all.